Ever dealt with a horse that has a problem everyone can see, but absolutely no one can agree on how to fix? It's one of the most maddening challenges in the horse world, and today we are going to get to the bottom of it. It's a story we've all heard, or maybe even lived through. You know something's off, you call in the experts, and you walk away with 3, 4, maybe 5 completely different diagnoses. But what if the issue isn't a lack of expertise? What if it's a fundamental flaw in how we're looking at the problem itself? So, let's make this real. Let's talk about a horse we'll call Apollo. He's not really lame, but his performance is tanking, and you can just tell he's uncomfortable. The signs are subtle, they come and go. His owner is worried, obviously, so she does what any of us would do. She starts making some calls. Okay, so first up is the saddle fitter. They do a full workup and come back with a very clear conclusion. It's a pressure issue from the saddle. It's a logical, specific diagnosis, right? It's coming directly from their area of expertise. But then, a therapist comes to see Apollo. After their evaluation, they've got a totally different take. From where they're standing, the root cause is muscular and fascial restriction. And again, that's a completely valid diagnosis from their field. And finally, the trainer weighs in. They look at Apollo and see his issues not as an equipment problem or a muscle problem, but as a gap in his overall conditioning and movement patterns. So now you've got 3 experts, 3 different and seemingly conflicting answers. So, who's right? And this right here, this is what we're calling the unsolved problem. See, the issue isn't about who's right and who's wrong. It's about a situation where every single specialist has a piece of the truth, but nobody has the whole picture. So, how do we end up here? Well, the core of the issue is something experts call discipline-specific silos. It basically means that each specialist is incredibly skilled, but they're operating inside their own little bubble, looking at the horse through the lens of their own discipline. And that gets us to the absolute heart of the matter, a fragmented approach. The saddle fitter sees the saddle, the therapist sees the muscle, the trainer sees the movement. Each one is looking at a single, totally valid piece of a much, much larger puzzle.
I mean, just look at how this plays out. The exact same symptom, a decline in performance, gets interpreted in completely different ways depending on who you ask. It's not that their diagnoses are wrong, it's that their points of view just aren't connected.
And the fallout from this fragmented approach? It's huge. We only end up stepping in after a problem becomes screamingly obvious. We miss the subtle underlying patterns because no one is connecting the dots. We're always playing catch-up, constantly fixing problems instead of preventing them in the first place. Okay, so it sounds like a mess, right? But what if there's a better way? The solution is in a huge shift in how we see things, moving away from looking at separate parts and starting to see one single, interconnected system. Here's a perfect way to think about it. Picture a Formula One race car. You'd never have the tire specialist just do their thing without talking to the engine mechanic or the chassis engineer. Of course not, because the driver, the engine, the frame, the tires, they all have to work together in perfect harmony. They are one single high-performance system. The exact same thing is true for a horse and rider. And this new approach, it actually has a name. It's called the Unified Framework. It's a model where the horse, the rider, and the saddle are no longer seen as separate components to be fixed one by one. Instead, they're understood as one single, interconnected, and dynamic system.
So, what are the parts of this system? Well, first, you've got the rider, who isn't just a passenger. They're a variable load that's constantly changing. Second, the saddle. It isn't just a static piece of leather. It's a dynamic interface that transfers that load. And third, the horse, which is an unbelievably adaptive system, constantly adjusting and responding to every little input.
All right. So we've got the components. Now for the really cool part. Let's connect the dots. Let's see how these parts interact and how tiny, seemingly insignificant changes can snowball into really big problems. The magic word here is interaction. It's not just about the rider, or just about the saddle, or just about the horse. It's all about the pathway of how load is transmitted from the rider through the saddle and to the horse. You change one thing anywhere along that chain, and the whole system feels it. So here's how this works in the real world. The horse adapts to that load by changing how it moves, and that creates these feedback loops. For instance, a tiny imbalance in the rider gets amplified by the saddle. This causes the horse to compensate, which in turn can make the rider's imbalance even worse. See the loop? Major dysfunctions rarely come from one big event. They build up from these minor issues stacking on top of each other, ride after ride.
And this doesn't happen overnight. In a single ride, all you might see is a little fatigue. But over weeks, the horse starts to develop compensatory ways of moving to deal with that low-grade stress. Then, over months, that compensation becomes an established dysfunction. And that's the very problem that sent Apollo's owner reaching for the phone in the first place.
So, what's the big payoff for thinking this way? It lets us move into a truly predictive future. It allows us to shift our entire approach from just reacting to problems to actually predicting and preventing them. And the difference between these two approaches is just night and day. The old way is a reactive care. You treat symptoms with these isolated one-off fixes, and surprise, surprise, the problems keep coming back. The new predictive way is about identifying risk patterns and using coordinated interventions to stop problems before they can even get started. So in the real world, this means a saddle fitter isn't just looking at the saddle on a static horse, they're assessing it dynamically with the rider in it. A therapist doesn't just treat the sore muscles, they ask why those muscles are getting sore. A trainer starts to integrate all these factors into their plans. And for everyone, the big takeaway is simple: collaborate.
The ultimate goal here is something called coordinated intervention. It's a world where the saddle fitter, the therapist, and the trainer are no longer in their separate silos. Instead, they're all working from the exact same system-wide understanding of Apollo, communicating and aligning their efforts for a single, better outcome.
It all comes down to this: one unified framework. A single, shared model to align every discipline. And this isn't just some abstract idea. It's the foundation for building the data-driven tools that could completely revolutionize how we care for our horses.
You see, solving the unsolvable horse isn't about finding some magic bullet. It's about changing our perspective. And that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. What other complex problems out there could we finally solve if we just stopped trying to fix the parts and started looking for the system?